Corlan, I'll be careful not to pause. I think it is quite incredible that in a modern society that we're spending time discussing this issue, because obviously, as far as I'm concerned, it should never have been there in the first place. And I do have a certain sympathy for the points made by Deputy Colreevy that it's convenient for the government that we're sitting here discussing this issue, maybe a pretence that the government is delivering something, when there are families and individuals out there who are literally terrified about how they're going to make ends meet with the imposition of the water charges yesterday and all of the other aspects of government austerity which has continued. But that said, I actually believe we should be discussing more of these issues rather than less. I mean, the Constitutional Convention was an unprecedented exercise in participation and debate on these issues, and it is regrettable that we're dealing with the 6th reports and the 4th and 5th are not being dealt with. I mean, the reality is that the deadline to respond to the 4th report was December of last year, and I note that the Minister has said they'll be dealt with in the lifetime of this government. Well, it would appear to me that this government's lifetime has been considerably shortened, and I'm not sure that she will. And I think there is a disappointment in the participants in the convention that maybe not enough has been done on some of those other reports. So I would echo that view and encourage the Minister in his remaining time in office to address those issues as best as possible. Look, I think our whole approach on this issue has been really consistent for its inconsistencies. In 2009, when Micheál Martin was Minister for Foreign Affairs, he opposed an attempt by the Islamic states to make defamation of religion a crime at UN level. And in a speech he said, "We believe that the concept of defamation of religion is not consistent with the promotion and protection of human rights. It can be used to justify arbitrary limitations on and the denial or the denial of freedom of expression. Indeed, Ireland considers that freedom of expression is a key and inherent element in the manifestation of freedom of thought and conscience, and as such is complementary to freedom of religion or belief." Now, it would be hard to disagree with absolutely anything said in that statement, yet a couple of months later his colleague, the Minister for Justice, Dermot Ahern, brings in the blasphemy law, a complete opposite position. You couldn't really make these things up, because that law says publishing or uttering matter that is grossly abusive or insulting in relation to matters sacred by any religion, thereby intentionally causing outrage among a substantial number of adherents of that religion, with some defences permitted. Now, I would argue that the blasphemy law actually contravenes Article 14 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which prohibits discrimination. The blasphemy law is discriminatory. I mean, if you think about it, we live in a world with really competing and sometimes clashing viewpoints on the nature and origin of the universe, in the whole area of ethics and so on, but it's only religious viewpoints that are exempt from robust criticism, and not those of a non-religious outlook. And I just want to give the example maybe of homosexuality. For many adherents of several of the world's major religions, their sacred texts outline in very clear language that homosexuality is an abomination and that the death penalty should be applied to gay people. Now, and indeed in some countries that law is actually imposed and gay people are murdered, although obviously in a whole number of other countries there's a more pick and mix approach to the holy books, and that people who wouldn't advocate the death penalty for gay people. But you'd have to say, amongst really the various conservative religious outlooks, you'll find the root of homophobia and discrimination against gay people is and stem from passages in holy books in religions. Now let's look on the other side, those who maybe hold a liberal, secular worldview. And for those people, the treatment of gay people is a cherished and sacred belief, and all instances of homophobia and discrimination against gay people are offensive to their value system. Now, if a person of these views, of a liberal, secular disposition, was to openly condemn religious texts and maybe the founders of those religions for inspiring centuries of hate and discrimination against gay people, some religious people would be deeply offended. not because of the accusation, but on account of the fact that they believe that their views alone should be protected. And I think we have to take that into account. This is flawed legislation stemming from our constitutional provision because it protects religious views from being offended but not applying those rights to anybody else. Now, the cost of living in a society that values freedom of expression is really that you've got to tolerate the views expressed by others, particularly those maybe that you don't like. I think Noam Chomsky put it very well when he said, if we don't believe in freedom of expression for the people we despise, then we don't believe in it at all. And I would support that view. I don't think any of us have the right to be protected from feeling offended by views that are contrary to our own, and a society that does cherish free speech, freedom of conscience and freedom of expression can't have on its statute books a law that protects religious ideas while discriminating against free speech of those who are critical of religion. And we do need to address these things. I think we should be fostering a culture in which no ideas really should be given protected status beyond what's there at the moment. I know what the Minister is saying, that the government is agreeing with the deletion from the Constitution, and I welcome that. I'm a little bit concerned with maybe as regards what happens next in terms of some inference that there'll be maybe a legislative replacement for it. Now, I know the Convention was divided on that, but I think we'd have to say that, you know, there is no need for replacement legislation in this area. Incitement to hatred on religious grounds is already covered by legislation in the Prohibition of the Incitement to Hatred Act 1989, which specifically protects individual citizens from being the target of hate, violence and mistreatment on the basis of their religion, their lack of religion, their race, gender, nationality, ethnicity or sexuality. And I think it is absolutely correct for the state to protect people from becoming the target of religious hatred, while at the same time repealing the blasphemy laws. If you like, that's kind of what happened in the UK, where they repealed their blasphemy laws, because, you know, you can commit incitement to religious hatred against people, but you can't commit blasphemy against a person. It's an entirely different thing, and our approach has to be different. Look, we're in 2014. Ireland is moving too slowly, in my opinion, but limping, I suppose, along to being a more secular country, and that's as it should be. And in that context, the 1937 Constitution needs to be radically reformed.